It has been a year since Love is Blind launched its Middle Eastern spin-off Love is Blind Habibi, and a year since Nour's now iconic line.
I don't do coffee dates. I don't do walking dates. I don't do last minute dates. I don't do this. I need to see effort. He have to book very fine dining, like nice place.
Nour basically became famous overnight. She was the show's biggest breakout star and the most talked about personality in the franchise. When this show came out, I genuinely believe that Nour had the potential to become the Arab it girl of the decade. She had the looks, the personality, and the controversy that turns your average mediocre celebrity into a sensational icon. But after she peaked on the show, her virality slowly began to die down. And a year later, her relevance is still deeply tied to the Love is Blind Habibi franchise. So much so that many fans are speculating whether she is dating her ex-co-star Chafic, or whether they're just faking it for attention. And just to be clear, before we dive into this video, this is a commentary that is based on publicly available material and information, and is by no means an attempt to hate on Nour as a person, but rather to serve as a case study to critically analyze how hype and controversy doesn't guarantee long-term success, and how a luxury-leaning aesthetic doesn't create a memorable brand, even within an Arab socio-cultural context that values these glamorous facades. So what exactly has Nour been up to since Love is Blind Habibi? And more importantly, why didn't her it girl arc convert? I know some of you guys might be skeptical on me labeling Nour as an it girl, and I get where you guys are coming from, but before jumping to conclusions in the comments, please allow me to make my case on Nour's potential as an it girl. Because keep in mind that when this show was initially filmed in 2023 and came out in 2024, the whole it girl, confidence guru, high value woman, luxury lifestyle influencer was the thing on social media. And I think that part of the reason why Nour became so popular so quickly was because she basically fit into that narrative. And while that trend has recently died down as a result of the Wizard Liz and Landon scandal, which exposed many of the pitfalls of this niche online, it's important not to forget how big these influencers were at the time. And Nour definitely had that same appeal. She stood out from the rest of the cast with her ultra feminine aura, her bougie style, and her je ne sais quoi Lebanese vibe that, you know, Arabs will hate on but secretly love. And on top of all of that, she was controversial. She was a polarizing public personality, and you can't be an it girl without that scandalous edge. And with that in mind, I think that a very loose comparison can be made between Nour and Haifa, in the sense that they both present themselves in ways that contradict what is traditionally expected from women in the Middle East. They are both bold, outspoken, glamorous, and sexy figures who stand out in a culture that still often expects women to shrink themselves and to stay out of controversy and the public eye.
التاتو فلقتونا فيه حتى العين ما مبينتها اليوم بدي بينت هون العين فوق.
And again, this is a loose comparison. Obviously, Nour is nowhere near Haifa as a public figure. Haifa was actually the Arab it girl of the 2000s, and she actually built a career for herself over many decades, and she has her own personal brand as an iconic Arab pop culture figure, whereas Nour doesn't yet have that same infrastructure or consistency or flair that Haifa has, with Nour's relevance still being largely tied with the Love is Blind Habibi franchise rather than her own personal brand and persona. And while I think it's a valid question to ask whether or not overnight success on reality TV set her up for failure long-term as a celebrity because, you know, easy come, easy go, I still believe that even then she still had the potential to become an icon or the next it girl. because even after her I Don't Do Coffee Dates virality, she still had another viral moment when the reunion episode came out. And I don't know if you guys remember, but that reunion episode completely shifted how the public perceived her. Because before the reunion episode came out, she was mainly seen by audiences as shallow, fake, and was sort of classified in this dumb, blonde, fake bimbo archetype, which I think is mainly a result of how the show decided to portray her rather than who she actually is as a person. It was only during the reunion episode and after that audiences began to see a different side to her. In the reunion episode, it became clear that she was a classy, intelligent, mature woman. She was very mindful, very demure, very cutesy, and more importantly, that she was a victim of bullying, misogyny, and body shaming by male cast members, which turned public opinion in her favor, adding to her it girl potential. Nour definitely had the chance to build something powerful for herself by leaning into the very real socio-cultural issues that she faced on the show. Things like, again, misogyny, double standards in dating, body shaming, bullying, because these were actual conversations that women were having about her in the Middle East and in the diaspora. And had Nour invested more in addressing these issues, she could have positioned herself as more than just Nour from Love is Blind Habibi. Nour's true loss of momentum can also be attributed to the mediums that shaped her public image, reality TV and social media. Because in today's media landscape, in order to create a personal brand and a community, you need authenticity. You need to be relatable, because you can't be liked by the public and stay famous if you are not relatable. And in the beginning, she was. By publicly dealing with bullying, misogyny, and body taming live on reality TV by male cast members, she instantly became a figure that women can relate to, because these are all issues that women face on a regular basis. For example, I personally don't love or hate her. I'm kind of in between. I agree with some of the things she said. I disagree with others, but I, as a woman, can see myself in her. I support her as a woman while I might not support everything she might say or do. And between her portrayal in the show, her interviews, and on social media, she was seen in the public eye as a nuanced, complex, and maybe even misunderstood person, which at the time gave her greater it girl appeal. But right now, her branding is lacking this authenticity, which made her popular in the first place, and more importantly, which Gen Z and millennial audiences crave. When you look at her social media now, her feed is very polished and curated to the point of detachment, filmed with glamorous photos, designer pieces, travel shoots, and the occasional brand partnership. Very little feels authentic or relatable, and the only time audiences saw her as real and genuine and authentic was in the context of Love is Blind. And because she failed to carry the same relatability into her post Love is Blind personal brand, her momentum slowly faded. And again, the potential was there for someone that became popular through her glam, her high standards, her confidence. You'd expect to see more content that actually delivers value, things like fashion or makeup tutorials because, you know, she is a model, or girl talk sessions, or maybe even sharing some of the challenges she might have experienced working as a model in the Middle East. And when she does tap into some of the angles I just mentioned, I noticed that her posts do get real engagements, which proves that the audience wants it. But instead, she continues to default to glossy photos, flashy looks, brain rot audios, and the Love is Blind Habibi franchise.
You know me. I don't do coffee dates and I don't do walking dates, so if he's not on time.
And what is also quite disappointing to see is that she had multiple chances to pivot her social media in a more meaningful direction. For example, during the summer, she revealed that she had gone through a painful body enhancing surgery that went wrong and that it really affected her. And I think this was a very rare opportunity that could have sparked real and meaningful conversation about beauty standards and body image in the Middle East, as well as some of the dangers of these super widespread procedures. But other than her Instagram story, nothing followed. And even after Love is Blind, Habibi, she started a YouTube channel, which I thought would have been the perfect opportunity for her to expand her brand. As you probably know, YouTube is a long form platform which would allow creators to deliver quality to their audiences and to viewers. But instead of posting meaningful content, all she posted were a few travel vlogs and a few mediocre girl pep talks. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of disappointed in the quality of her video content, both technically and creatively. Yes, she does a very good job with her photos. She is a model after all, so I wouldn't expect any less. However, her videos are just very poorly done. And I really don't mean to judge or sound mean when I'm saying this. I just recently committed to content creation full time, and I know that it is so hard. It's really hard, really tiring, really time consuming. But considering that she came off a major Netflix show and that she does work full time as a content creator and she has all these big brand deals left and right, you would think that she would have the resources to create better content. At the very least, you'd expect her to have some sort of like team for her social media or a talent management agency that could have helped her develop a stronger personal brand. Like, girl, whoever your agent or manager is not doing a good job. Because I think, again, there's so much potential with her as a public figure, but there's something going wrong in the messaging. And this isn't to say that you can't build a personal brand around luxury. You can, but it all comes down to execution. Because there is a very fine line between luxury and materialism. And right now, Nour's image is more materialistic. The best way I can explain this is to think about it like a hotel. You can have the finest sheets, you can have the most expensive interior design, you can serve the best food, but if you don't create a memorable and personalized experience for your guests, then you're not really offering luxury. Because luxury isn't just things, it's an experience, it's a standard, it's a mindset. And I think that's why Nour's famous "I don't do coffee dates" line was so iconic. It wasn't about flaunting wealth, it was about standards and effort. And while many criticized her for being a gold digger or materialistic, I do think that the essence of what she was saying is that a first date should require thought and effort and not be something that you can do on a daily basis, like going for coffee or taking a walk. And yes, she does reference fine dining in her quote, but I think that's just more reflective of her personality, her standards, or maybe her expectations from, she grew up as a spoiled Arab girl. She's allowed to have those standards. And I think it resonated with a lot of women who are so sick and tired of how low the bar is set for men when dating. And I think that's what made her come across as a luxurious and bougie persona rather than a materialistic one. But on social media, her content doesn't translate the same luxury, bougie, confident girl mindset, showcasing designer items, her looks, expensive travel, and a curated lifestyle. And that material branding just isn't relatable to mass audiences. And like, assuming you're the average person like me, the closest thing that you might ever get to owning a luxury or designer item is probably like, I don't know, one of these designer books. This is my Chanel book and this is my Dior book. However, I do also think that it is also worth asking whether or not Arab culture in itself had a role to play in how Nour decided to present herself in her post Love is Blind Habibi image. And I think that in our societies, among certain people in the Arab nouveau riche elite class, it's quite common or even expected of them to sort of flaunt their wealth through luxury or designer items, whereas publicly showcasing vulnerability or engaging in controversial topics still remains very taboo. And from that perspective, I guess it does make sense why Nour decided to lean into a more polished, soft girl luxury aesthetic on social media rather than leaning into these controversial issues and building a more relatable day-to-day persona. And I really think it's such a shame because what made her so iconic and what made her stand out on Love is Blind Habibi was the fact that she had to confront these issues like bullying, misogyny, double standards and whatnot. And I think that is exactly what it was about the female cast members of Love is Blind Habibi that made them feel so authentic, relatable, and relevant. And if Nour continued to sort of claim this space by openly addressing issues like bullying, misogyny, or double standards in dating, it could have cemented herself as an iconic figure in Arab pop culture. Because again, these are under-discussed issues in our communities that is still very taboo, and giving them a platform would have been very powerful to see and would have been very different from what a lot of Arab celebrities and influencers do. And in adopting this very mature and demure, classy, soft girl image, it did shield her from controversy, but I think it stripped away the edge that made her it girl potential. And over time, she started to feel less like a rising icon and more like everyone else in the industry. And maybe that's just what happens when you hit peak success or success overnight. You kind of get too comfortable in where you are and get boxed into corporate needs and micro trends to create profit. And especially in an Arab or Middle Eastern context where women's issues are still very taboo, the pressure to stay marketable leaves her no room to take the risk of engaging in these controversial topics. And I think that this is also the case for many of the pseudo celebrities that have recently become well known through these Arab reality TV shows. They often have a viral moment but then fail to maintain it. And I think it's very telling that whenever Nour does trend on social media, it's always tied back to Love is Blind Habibi. Even her biggest, most popular, and most viewed collaboration since the end of the show with Noon leaned directly into her reality TV persona and not her own personal brand. She's still Noor from Love is Blind Habibi, a puppet of the industry and not an icon. However, maybe that was her intention or goal. Maybe she didn't expect to receive the virality and fame that she did receive on Love is Blind. And maybe it is her goal to be a small micro influencer. Maybe she wants to focus on modeling rather than tapping into her celebrity potential, which may be the case. However, recent events would prove otherwise.
I have so much tea. Shafiq and Nour are together. They have been hanging out, and not just as friends, because friends don't take these kind of photos. No, as a couple.
Maybe now that it has been a year since Love is Blind Habibi came out, Nour now realizes that she's losing relevance, which may have prompted her into her most recent scandal. And in terms of these rumors, I just think that it's so interesting because after a day of this speculation, Nour posted another ad with Noon, where you can clearly see Shafiq's hand in the advertisement as her dinner date, which you obviously can tell is him based on the tattoos on his hand. And the caption of the Instagram reel, which was the ad, was captioned, "The rumors are true." Now, whether it's a PR stunt or a general reveal is up to interpretation, but it's definitely part of how she's choosing to engage with her audience and how she is choosing to present herself publicly. And I think this really just leaves us with two possibilities. Either one, they're fake dating for attention to boost views and stay relevant, or two, they are actually dating. And I think each of these scenarios present very different consequences for Nour's future as a public figure. If this is a PR stunt, it does reinforce her dependence on the show to stay relevant, which again is not doing anything good for her personal brand. This might work now, but what about in a few years when season 1 of Love is Blind Habibi is no longer relevant? The upside of this scenario, however, is that if this is a stunt, stunts are never permanent, and it might even help her in the sense that with her name now back in the conversation and now that she's come up again in the eyes of the public, she still has a chance to pivot and create a meaningful and authentic brand, a brand that stands on its own without having to rely on Love is Blind Habibi. But if this isn't a stunt and Nour and Chafic are actually dating, I think this could destroy whatever personal branding she has left and make any future revival impossible. Because keep in mind that this is the same Chafic, this is the same guy who publicly disrespected her on screen. And don't forget that this is also the same man that was publicly engaged to another woman for about a year and only just recently separated. So if she actually is dating Chafic, it would completely undermine the image that she created for herself as a high value woman who is confident and luxurious. It completely erases her brand. And again, is completely against the persona that made audiences fall in love with her in the first place, which would also tarnish her legacy from the show. Because let's be real, the very thing that made her famous, the very thing that made her iconic was her quote unquote high standards. And if she ends up with Chafic, then all of that branding goes à la poubelle. But whether or not Nour's It Girl arc failed, the truth is that she is still relevant. The fact that I'm making this video a year after Love is Blind Habibi came out, the fact that you clicked on this video, and the fact that you are watching this video proves as much. But I do think if no changes are made to her personal brand or public appearances, she will inevitably become irrelevant and forgotten. If her PR mantra is all publicity is good publicity, then she's definitely getting what she wants. Any criticism, this video including, does benefit her. But it really begs the question of what is the long-term benefit of such a branding strategy? There is a lot of buzz about her right now, but what about in another year or in another 5 years? Will she still be able to rely on her Love is Blind Habibi persona? Or is this just what publicity, marketing, and branding strategy has become in today's micro-trend driven media environment? As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more Arab pop culture deep dives, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And if you would like to support my work directly, consider becoming a member of my channel. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope to see you all in my next video.